Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and this is your guide to the hectic ad wave boss to close out Mogushan Vaults, the DDR boss of your nightmares, Will of the Emperor.
The Emperor's strength grips this land with fists of iron.
So, you made it all the way to the end of the instance, and you're now faced with this gigantic room and one of the most iconic boss fights in Mists of Pandaria, consisting of waves and waves of ads while you deal with the onslaught of blows from the two big boys, Qin-Xi and Qin-Xi, two of the hardest hitting enemies in this phase. We'll split this guide into a bunch of little parts, going over how we deal with each of the ads, and then weave it all together at the end. Okay, first, we've got a normal raid comp here, but you will want 2 druids, a major 2, and maybe a few hunters. I say this because of how we'll deal with one of the ads, so keep that in mind as you make your raid. Alright, so on heroic, to pull the boss, you're going to want to move to either side of the room and fiddle with these gas lines. Doing so will begin the encounter and fill the room with Titan gas, dealing 17,000 frost damage to everyone in the room every second, and increasing the damage of your enemies from normal by 25%. Just something you're going to need to deal with. It's not overwhelming, I promise. Alright, so let's quickly just discuss each of the ads. There are 3 types: Emperor's Rage, Emperor's Courage, and Emperor's Strength, each with specific ways to deal with them that will require your raid to split up into teams to handle it. Most of these cubbies on the walls will be where the enemies spawn, and they don't change much where they do, so this image should do the trick. When any of these ads die, they will spawn a Titan Spark, a dangerous ball of lightning that will fixate on a random player and slowly move toward them. If anyone gets close to this, the spark will explode, dealing 750,000 damage in an 8-yard radius around it, and increasing the attack speed of any enemy also hit by it by 50% for 2 minutes.
What an idiot.
This should never happen. More on that in a second. Alright, so you've probably noticed the massive clump of small guys that we've got rooted in the back. Honestly, they're probably the most complicated part of this, at least for our guys, so we'll wait on going over those. Let's begin by starting with the big guys and then heading towards the small. So, beginning with the Emperor's Strength. These guys will spawn about 30 seconds into the fight in pairs of 2 on the sides of the room and have normal aggro tables. They also don't actually melee for very hard, so we'll assign 2 plate DPS to tank them. DPS warriors, rep paladins, and DKs are great. Even hunters do work, or balance druids, but the goal here is to keep them close to the wall and away from the rest of the raid, as they have an ability similar to the big bosses called Energizing Smash. They telegraph a big circle of damage on the ground as they spin this up and then smash down, so if you're tanking this, you want to move out of it. When they spawn, hunters should MD them to their assigned tanks, and ranged DPS should quickly get to work on them. Just be very careful not to pull threat, as they need to die close to the walls to avoid the spark being dropped in the raid. You want to keep it as far from everybody as possible. Now, when they die, and this goes for every ad that dies on this encounter, you should have a rogue or a hunter, maybe a shadow priest with dispersion or a paladin with bubble, use their invulnerabilities to run in and pop it. As long as they're the only player close enough to get hit, it should harmlessly fizzle, and the raid can de facto ignore them otherwise. Okay, those are the strengths. Next, we'll talk about the medium-sized ads, the courages. Now, these guys are pretty annoying. They will spawn on the direct sides of the room and each target the tank, tanking one of the main bosses that is farthest from where they spawn. The fixate will be visible with this big red line connecting them and the tank. Additionally, a few seconds into them spawning, they'll put up the buff half plate, where they'll be shielded from any attack from their front. This means that DPS, you need to focus these guys from the back. As they do move pretty quick, you should slow them as fast as you can, and then DPS them down. Note, they can't be stunned or rooted. These are the most important ads to die, as if they do reach the tank that they're fixating on, the spark will buff the boss, an already very dangerous enemy, so it needs to die well before they reach them. So just blast and ignore threat and get them dead. These do start spawning about a minute into the fight and about every 90 seconds to 2 minutes after that, so watch those timers and be ready for them when they they spawn. Again, those hunters and rogues need to soak those sparks when they do spawn, as they can't reach the raid or the tanks, as it could cause a wipe. Okay, that's 2 of the 3. Let's discuss the third and, in my opinion, most fiddly, the Emperor's Rages. Now, these little guys are like the piranhas of the fight and spawn first, about 10 seconds into it, then about every 30 to 45 seconds after that. It's a bit varied. The timing for all the ads is a little bit of a mess, so watch them closely. Okay, so they spawn in one of these 6 cubbies in the far back of the room, 3 close to the ground, and 3 a story up. When they spawn, each will fixate on a random player in the raid and quickly move to them unless they are slowed or stunned somehow. And yes, when they die, they will also drop a spark. However, because these guys are fully CCable, we're going to opt to mostly not kill these things. Instead, we'll have 2 druids using their mass entanglement spell, also known as AoE roots, and keep them stuck in place for ideally the entire duration of the fight. Mass entanglement lasts for 20 seconds, but the cooldown is 30 seconds. So this means that about every 15 to 20 seconds, one of your 2 druids is going to cast AoE roots, keeping all the enemies rooted, and then the next one will refresh it 15 to 20 seconds later. Boji has a great weak aura in his raid pack that keeps track of the druid's root timers and cooldowns. It's very helpful if you're looking for something to track it. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the ads will continue to spawn even as your druids are managing their cooldowns. So, if a new wave lands right after one of the roots goes out, your druids won't be able to root them because the other druids will still be on cooldown. So, to counter this, we're going to assign a hunter or 2 to keep an eye on the stack at all times, doing their best to multitask between doing damage to the other ads, the bosses, and keeping an ice trap down right in front of the stack to pop if any do get out, and triggering the survival hunter's entrapment. This absolutely will happen sometimes, I promise you.
You cannot get out. They are coming.
Additionally, mages should be frost and can use their water elemental Frost Nova to keep the entire stack in place briefly. And if the druids need more time, that mage can also use their own Frost Nova. Hunters, you can use your Binding Shot as well, any manner of AoE stuns and roots from range as possible to keep the enemies from reaching your raid. Now, every so often, you should have your DKs use their Gorfiend's Grasp, or AoE Grip, to pull all of the enemies into a point to clean up the stack. One thing to note, if an enemy is rooted from Mass Entanglement, they can't be pulled in with the Death Grip, so the DK will need to watch the timer and communicate with the druids what they're about to do. The druid next up to root should do their best to land the root right after the Mass Grip to keep the stack as clean as possible. Now, this whole thing will take your guys some time to learn, but just know there are an insane number of ways to keep things from getting out of hand. Druids can single target root any that do get out of the stack. They can be stunned, incapacitated, slowed by any number of abilities. Just stay on your toes and don't let them hit the raid. Because if they do, it's not fun, believe me. I'm speaking from experience here. Okay, so those are the ads. Now let's discuss the bosses themselves, Qin-Xi and Qin-Xi. These behemoths are no joke. Each hit incredibly hard, and early in the phase, you'll want to make sure that you've always got a cooldown up while it's meleeing you. Yes, I mean always. More on that in a second. Okay, so 90 seconds into the pull, the 2 bosses will spawn, one from each of the large cubbies on the curved side of the room, and they'll do their little bow animations and then begin to lay into the tanks, who should be threading hard and backing them up to these corners toward the entrance of the room. Once you reach your spot, Flip him around so he's facing the raid, as it will help people with range issues throughout the room in case you need an external, which you will, and get ready for each of their special abilities. Now we'll call these combos. About 25 seconds into them spawning, they'll begin doing these combos that's going to require you to dance around them to avoid their attacks. They'll do 10 total swings of this each, and there are a few variations. One is a big arc to the right, one on the left, one on the front, and one all around them in a small radius. Now you're looking to, obviously, dodge all of these. If you do get hit, you probably won't get one shot if you're melee, but it does apply a stacking armor reduction debuff that lasts for 2 minutes. This tooltip says 15 seconds, but on beta it was 2 minutes. It's kind of weird, but I think it was meant to be 2 minutes either way. You'll need to dodge 10 of these per combo, and if you get more than 3 or 4 of these debuffs on you, you'll need to dip out and wait for that debuff to fall off, or risk getting one shot by the bosses. Now, tanks really can't afford to get hit by more than a couple of these, as they'll be taking a serious beating already during the 25 or so seconds between each of these combos. 25 seconds of which, as I said previously, you need to have a cooldown rolling at all times, or you risk just getting destroyed by their melee attacks. Things like Iron Bark, Paints Up, Sack, Life Cocoon, Rally, Vigilance, Demo Banner, all cooldowns your tanks will need to survive until they get more gear, and even then you should use them, as there really isn't any other time you'll need them. Okay, last thing about these combos. If you successfully dodge all 10 of the attacks, you'll get a brief buff that gives you the ability Opportunistic Strike, a one-use attack that deals 1 million damage to one of the bosses that you should try to get as often as you can, as getting them down as soon as possible is the name of the game. Okay, so that is all of the mechanics for the fight. There is an enrage at 13 minutes, but odds are you won't see it, as the boss should be dead. At around 3 to 4 minutes in, you'll get a 90-second break from the ads, and then another around 6 minutes. So when you think things look pretty clean and you see those timers giving you about a minute, pop Bloodlust and go ham on the bosses. Now if you danced your heart out, managed the ads, and held back the rages, Will of the Emperor should go down, and you're 1/3 of your way through the phase. Congratulations. Okay, let's talk about some tank tips. Huge things here are planning your cooldowns between each combo and avoiding the combo attacks when they're happening. This goes for the DPS too, but it helps a lot if you look at the boss top down, so you can easily see the white lines and move away from them. Also, staying as center to the boss as you can, so that you have less distance to run between each attack. And for the healers, big things here are staying in the middle of the room and managing your tank HP with externals. Also, keep your eyes open for any sparks that might be erroneously drifting towards the raid. You don't want to be close to them if they do, so scoot away until it gets effectively soaked. And for the DPS, you've got a priority list here, so manage it. First, if you're assigned to something, you do that over anything else. Then, the ranged should focus the strengths and the melee on the courages, as the ranged can't really attack it from the center of the room because of the shields. After all that, hit the bosses. And for those assigned to soak the sparks or root the rages in the back, it's critical that you do your jobs and be vocal if you need help. But if you're assigned to backup, you really do need to watch the stat closely and be ready to help out. And if you're not assigned to backup, it doesn't hurt to watch and help out if you can. Be the hero. Okay, well that's it for Will of the Emperor. Thanks for sticking with me on this. I know it was a long one, but I wanted you to have all the information I did, as there is a lot going on here. If you enjoyed this guide, do me a favor and like and subscribe. I've got Heart of Fear and Terrace of the Endless Springs guides coming soon. If you're looking to watch me raid this place, I'll be streaming it live on raid launch night, all night. So come tune in and watch us try not to screw up all of the prep that we've done. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you in the next one.
Unlimited power! Dude, I am such a Chad. I just chatted the fuck out of that.